back in July of 24, this is for a residential customer.
Right.
Typical bill was 110.
Right.
And so we requested, when you file a rate review, you request interim rates, so you're asking for a part of it up front, and then ultimately they make a decision.
Yeah.
So when we were asking for the interim, that would have taken and increased the bill for a customer by $2.
Right.
But what happened, for whatever reason, and I don't know why, but the commission instead said, financially, Northwestern, you're okay, and instead of allowing this slight increase, they actually decreased by quite a bit. And so, if we'd have followed this,
right,
then when the final settlement rates came out, it would have been just another $2. So customers would have seen, not a bad,
right,
easier to deal with, if you will. But
right,
what happened with the commission, so they bring it down to 101 back in December.
Right.
And then when we implement the as-filed rates, it goes here. So customers saw a much more drastic increase.
And by as-filed rates, that's when they took too long and you guys just filed.
Exactly.
And you still file the rates with them, right? Just you don't have to get approval from them if they take too long, right?
Right.
But sure, I know that's a weird detail.
Well, and you file them like that, and then they're subject to refunds. So at some point,
right,
the commission will make a final decision, and then we'll go back.
And I know you guys you're supposed to have it guaranteed.
Well,
that's what people say.
Nothing's guaranteed.
Right.
We get confused between the word guaranteed and the word authorized.
Right.
We have an authorized rate of return. And that's the best we can ever do.
Right.
And honestly, we never ever meet the authorized rate of return.
Right.
So, people don't understand that. And the other thing that was interesting with this is that when you go in and file for a rate review, you're trying to recover costs for investments you've made since the last rate review. So in our case, we made probably about $1.5 billion worth of investments in the system. And that included the Yellowstone plant, it included lots of different things. But so you're trying to recover that. And typically, I'll just kind of, if I could, just walk through. When you file for a typical rate review, you're trying to recover costs based upon investments you've made since the last rate review. And so in our case, we had made about $1.5 billion worth of investments that we were trying to recover. And so that's why you go to the commission and you ask for that type of a recovery. Normally what happens is you file for the rate review, and in our case we filed in July of 24, and the commission then has 9 months to render a final decision.
Right.
And typically what happens is at some point after you file the initial rate review, for example in July of 24, somewhere in that October range, the utility usually requests what they call interim rates, which is the ability to recover a portion of what you invested, knowing that down the road there will be a final decision forthcoming. And when you put in those interim rates, you know up front, we as a company know up front that if for some reason the commission says no, the rate should be less than what the interim was, then you have to give customers refunds plus interest. So typically that's what happens. You request and get the interim rates, and then somewhere within that 9-month period, near the end, there's a final order that comes out from the commission. So typically that's what happens.
Right.
In our case with this one, which was a little bit unique, we filed in July, just like I mentioned. We requested interim rates, which would have basically increased normal residential customer bill by about $2. But instead, for whatever reason, and I can't explain the reasoning, but the commission said, NorthWestern, you're fine financially, and rather than grant the interim rates that you requested, we're going to reduce your rates and we're going to lower your authorized rate of return. And so what that did, instead of bringing the residential bill from 110 to 112, it actually brought it down from 110 to 101. So that created an issue because they're lowering the revenues that we're collecting, and we're not getting the return on the investments that we had made since the last rate review. So that's where the issue actually comes in. So then what if we fast forward, we got to the hearings and all of that, and at that point the commission, the 9-month window had expired and the commission had not come to a decision. So by statute, we can put in the rates that we originally requested back in July, and again, they're subject to refund whenever the commission comes out with a final order. So on May 23rd, that's what happened. And that created a lot of media attention, a lot of concern from customers, all that kind of stuff. And so we then, about a week after that, went in and visited with the commission, and we came to an agreement with them that they allowed us to come back to the settled rates, the rates that, the interim rates that we had settled upon with the Montana Consumer Council, the large customer group, Walmart, and the federal agencies. And so that's where you heard media attention that the rates got lowered. And that was really a cooperative effort between the company and the commission.
Right.
It wasn't some grandstanding thing by the company nor by the commission. It was just very simply an agreement that this makes better sense.
Yeah, it was interesting, the news stories that came out made it sound like they had just stuck it to you.
Yeah.
But
we were the ones that actually went in and initiated it, and so that worked out well. So where we're at right now is we have those settled rates out there, and we will just wait until the commission gives us a final order. I don't expect to see that until late this year, probably October timeframe. Whenever the commission renders that final order, we'll see what those rates are versus what the rates are today. And again, if they're equal to or a little bit higher, we'll put those in. If they're less, then they're subject to refund with interest. So that's been the big deal. The other issue that I'll share with you that I think some customers have asked about, and this is more business customers rather than residential, but when you get your bill, on the bill there's typically an item called a service charge.
Right.
And the service charge is intended for what I'll call fixed costs. So meter reading, the contact center, all those different kinds of things that really don't change whether a customer's energy use goes up or down.
Right.
You're always going to have those costs. And so in the past, those costs have been part of the rates that customers choose or that customers pay rather than in the service charge piece. And so that service charge has always been under collected. So what as part of this rate review, the other thing they tried to do was move some of those fixed costs over into the service charge. So some customers, like the small business, medium business customers, have seen an increase in that service charge, but again, it washes out, if you will,
Right.
because you're just taking money from here and putting it over here. We'll see where it goes. I mean, like I said, we've got a settlement for a good portion of it, but the two wild cards right now are Yellowstone and how
Right.
much or what portion of that should be included in rates,
Right.
and then that whole rate of return